I'm heartbroken that she's stepping away because, you know, she fights for Alberta, but she also fights for Canadians, and she fights for the Alberta and the Canada that all of us want. And I think we can all agree that this week, while the Premier of Alberta is attacking the most vulnerable people in our country, we need people like Rachel Notley standing up for trans rights, for people's rights, for Albertans' rights. You know, Danielle Smith, who chose to be known by a different name, has been telling us that other people don't have that right. So I'm so proud that I had the opportunity to stand with Rachel today and talk about what all Canadians believe, that trans people have the right to choose their names, that every person has the right to identify who they are as a person. Now, I want to tell you, there's a room, we went through the run of show, and we have all these politicians, and so the organizers, great job everybody, the organizers were basically saying, could you all keep it short? And I was laughing because politicians, that's not what we do. But the funny thing for me is that they were sort of saying, you know, cut your time down, don't say everything, and I was thinking in my mind, I should get up here and tell you all that I'm now going to list every awesome thing that Rachel Notley did for the province of Alberta and for Canada. But I'm not. I'll be good. She's coming up. She'll tell you. She'll give you some information. What I do want to say is that the Alberta NDP right now are the largest opposition in Alberta's history. That the NDP increased our vote in Alberta 6 times, like 6-fold is the number that we increased our vote. And we call that in Alberta the Notley effect. That's how that's called now. Rachel Notley led the first government in my life that I voted for. And personally, I want to say, you know, she is my MLA, but she has been so kind and so generous with mentoring, with helping, with supporting me. You know, I stand in Edmonton, Strathcona on the shoulders of pretty giant women. Giant women. Some very, very, great women. So I'd like to invite Rachel to come up and share a few words. And I'm just so proud. I'm so proud of everything you've done and the way that you have led us, led Alberta, led our province. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Excuse me while I just push up the mic here. It's too low to help Heather speak, but now it's taller for me. Took you no time to get to the short jokes. It's very funny, very good. Thank you so much, and good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so pleased to be with you all here in Ottawa, which we acknowledge as the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. Their culture, their presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. So I want to thank you all so much for that wonderful warm welcome. And it is truly for me a tremendous honor to have been asked to speak tonight at the Douglas Coldwell Leighton Foundation's 2024 Mouseland Gala. Thank you so much, Heather, for that wonderful introduction. And she mentioned that I'm her MLA. Well, she's my MP. And the one thing that I do like to point out, and it's not that I like to humble brag about Alberta, but I really like to humble brag about Alberta as much as we can. And I do believe that she enjoyed the greatest support of any NDP MP in the last election in the country, in the province of Alberta. So, you know, she's kind of a big deal. I just want you to know that. So, and thank you, Brad, for agreeing to host and to MC tonight, and for also accelerating this opportunity so I wasn't able to get another glass of wine. Excellent work. Thank you. So, you know, when I was invited to speak, I told Brad, you know, okay, but this first one, just the first one, is free. And after that, the price goes up. Step 2 in my post-political career is to hopefully start earning Obama speaking rates. I will say tonight is a bit of a free trial period as I commence the scramble up the mountain towards Obama level gravitas. But I am working on it, and so I come in front of you today, before you, with my first pair of metaphorical hiking socks in hand. So I hope it works out okay. On the topic of speakers, I would love to give a huge round of applause, and I'd love for you to join me in thanking Verna and Jennifer and Dawn, and of course our leader Jagmeet, for their incredible inspirational words tonight. Jagmeet, as always, is so incredibly inspiring as a leader, so accessible, and also very flexible, as he determined he was going to introduce all the people he didn't know was in the room. That was just that is a flex move for a leader. You need to know that. And Dawn, you know, that was an incredibly excellent speech about healthcare and the work that Canada's NDP is doing to build healthcare, public healthcare all across this country, continuing that work. And thank you so much. And it's that level of knowledge and commitment to how we make this happen, which is why we're so good at building things for Canadians year after year after year. Thank you so much, Dawn, for those words. So, you know, my friends, we are now 20% of the way through the agenda. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. There are only 3 more speakers after me tonight. You think I'm laughing, but you think I'm joking, but that's actually true. But anyway, if you thought you were a social democrat before this marathon, just you wait. You know, the all-star lineup tonight reminds me of the roots of our movement, where everyone in the church basement would take their turn preaching social justice to each other all day long and into the evening. So in that spirit, friends, tonight we gather to honor the legacy of some of our movement's greatest visionaries, to share ideas and perspectives, and yes, maybe even to take a minute to celebrate Mouseland itself. You know, back home in Alberta, we have an event that we call Read-In Week, where, if done correctly, MLAs get to preach partisan politics to grade 6 social students in their riding while reading a book of their choice. Needless to say, Mouseland is my favorite book to read to grade 6 students during those visits. And I do it, I'll admit, because it has the added benefit of triggering the United Conservatives on Twitter, which is one of my other favorite activities. But more than that, it is truly one of the best ways to share the whole idea of what we call social democracy with some of our youngest citizens. And I knew that in doing that, I was making progress when I would ask the class, does anyone here know who the cats are in this story? And they would put their hands up at the same time and enthusiastically yell, Stephen Harper, Danielle Smith, Donald Trump. Yes, my work at Edmonton Strathcona was done. But you know, as a fable, it's a very, very effective at giving character to our core values, to compassion, to solidarity, to collectivity, and to the enduring power of both ideas and ideals. Mouseland is one of the ways we can tangibly hold on to those values and celebrate them, and that's why it's so important. And the work done here by the Douglas Coldwell-Leighton Foundation is so important. There are many things in our history that warrant celebration and protection because they not only drive progress and quality of life for Canadians on a daily basis, but they serve as the foundation for the future progress we all dream of making. So to Irene and Brad and Derek and the whole board, as well as Josh and the staff, thank you all for your work in preserving our values, our history, and the legacy of its authors, of which there are many. This week, as many people have already mentioned, I'm thinking of Ed, his legacy, but also his down-to-earth and gentlemanly approach to the issues. I know there are lessons from him that New Democrats take to heart in how we do things each and every day. There are many people here in this room that do that. But for starters, he showed us how to marry our shared fervor for public policy, good, thoughtful public policy, with the populist pocketbook politics. Thank you. I did say that, all 3 Ps, right? Thank you. But truly, the politics that ground the issues in what really matters, which are people. You know, I remember as a kid listening to my dad on conference calls with Ed and Alan Blakeney and other party leaders at that time. My dad, for those of you who may not remember or know, was the leader of Alberta's NDP at that time. It was round 2 of the 80s energy dispute with Ottawa, and my dad was honestly closer to the Peter Lougheed position on Alberta's right to oil revenue than Ed would have preferred, because Ed was, not surprisingly, advocating a more nationalist approach at that time. And it may surprise you to know that at 18 years old, I was more inclined, actually, to agree with Ed, even if only just for the purpose of getting a reaction from my dad when I called him a separatist once he got off the phone. I actually believe that there are probably times now when Jagmeet wishes he could have been dealing with 1982 Rachel. But through it all, it was always clear that they were both proud New Democrats who believed in our cause, and that was usually enough to weather the occasional dispute. My dad never spoke about their differences, only the things that he shared and that he admired: integrity, duty, determination, concern for what happens to regular folks all across this country, and of course, yes, donors lists. But I have so many fond memories of Ed, and I know that we are all missing him tonight. He was an inspiration to me. He was a tremendous support and source of advice to me when I woke up one morning and discovered myself in the Premier's office. And he was that source of grace to so many of us in this room. And we will remember the things that he told us for decades and decades and more to come. So, my point is this: social democracy in Canada has its own legacy. And even in those times when we disagree, we are forging this legacy together. And my friends, the building blocks of that legacy are very strong. Universal health care, the minimum wage, strong pensions, human rights that are protected, affordable housing, environmental stewardship, solidarity with workers and their rights, and on and on and on. There are so many things that we cherish as Canadians, which are a direct result of the work and the sacrifice of social democratic leaders and movements through our country's history. Together, we change things for the better. This has been a little bit of my experience, and so tonight I want to talk just a bit about what it looks like in Alberta, what social democracy in Alberta looks like, and I suppose some of the things that some folks might call my quote-unquote legacy. It should be no surprise that the idea of a legacy has been on my mind lately. For those of you who haven't heard, earlier this month I announced that after just about 10 years, I will be stepping down as leader of Alberta's NDP. Thank you, that's great. Thank you, it's lovely. I'm not gonna lie, the announcement was a bit emotional, reflecting on a decade of hard work, of great people, and so many accomplishments that we were able to secure together as a group in Alberta. Looking back for a bit on my personal political journey, I wish I could say I experienced some big come-to-Jesus moment when I discovered social democracy, but really, the fact is I was raised in it. My mom, Sandy, was what others might call an extreme left activist, or at least that's what my dad called her. And my dad, well, he actually restarted the CCF Campus Club at the University of Alberta in 1958, when the average age of the party's membership was 60. Very young, I just want to say, but nonetheless, it didn't seem like that at the time, and he was 19 years old. So I want to just say, in speaking a bit about the University of Alberta, because of our family's history, because also I too got a degree at the University of Alberta, yeah, great university. So I am so grateful to learn and to be able to announce tonight that this foundation has established an undergrad scholarship at the University of Alberta in our family's name. Thank you all so much. It is just another way that this foundation supports young people to pursue the study of social democracy with the same kind of zeal as my dad did, and frankly, as I did. And I just want to throw it out there that one of my kids is actually still there, so I don't know if they're eligible, but just, you know. But no, it is truly a tremendous honor to have this kind of scholarship established. It's so amazing, and so I just want you all to accept the biggest thank you and such a tremendous amount of gratitude from a whole Notley family for this honor. When I was 4 years old, before I hit university, a year or two, actually not true, quite a while, my mom used to describe my father as Robin Hood, making sure those who had less could have more. And for 11 years, he was the sole NDP MLA in Alberta, and he was often referred to as the only true opposition around. And I would see him come home after going 6 rounds in the legislature with the Conservatives at the time. And we were 6 hours away from Edmonton, so it was quite the trip. And then he'd turn around and he'd spend another 6 hours chasing livestock for the neighbors because guess what? Alberta Transportation had knocked over somebody's fence. He did that, it's true. And so I suppose in some ways that chasing livestock is as good a metaphor as any for how hard New Democrats have to work to get elected in Alberta. Daily campaign events, phone calls, coffee meetings, door knocking, and the occasional cattle chase. I mean, we've all done it, right? All the politicians in the room, that's kind of where it goes. But that was the environment that I was raised in. In short, I learned that New Democrats had to work 3 times as hard in Alberta as anyone else in that province, and that was certainly an attitude that I carried through my life. And so that's important, and it's important to our future as well. Now, notwithstanding my parents' history, I was actually pretty resistant to being involved in politics professionally. But when I was in my early 20s, I found myself working in a constituency office while attending university. That office just happened to be down the street from the Gaynors meatpacking plant in northeast Edmonton. It was also the mid-1980s, and Alberta was going through a really hard recession. So who would come through those office doors the most? Well, the UFCW workers at Gainers, who were already undertaking one of the most high-profile strikes in Alberta's history, and unemployed construction trade workers, many of whom were suffering injuries, and they came to get help from a constituency assistant who was all of 21 years old. In my work, I soon realized that the law was absolutely written to stop them from exercising and securing their rights. Suffice to say, I was inspired. And that's part of why I went to Osgoode Law School and where I took disability law and labor law so I could help people struggling with those systems. But at a certain point, like many politicians, I know, like Don, we've had this conversation before, I realized I could either fight the law as a lawyer or I could change the law. And so I wound up right back on the doorsteps of Alberta's NDP. And when I entered politics in 2008, it was a two-person show. Brian Mason, our leader at the time, and me. We fought for the bottom quote of every newspaper story back in the day. Remember newspapers? Sometimes settling for after the Alberta Party, but ahead of the Liberals. Today, both those parties are gone. In Alberta, I think the reason so many superficial progressive-ish movements have come and gone while the NDP have always hung around is because we have a strong history, and it involves foundational group of grassroots activists, people who genuinely care for the social good, who are driven, who are passionate, who are diligent, and who are very, very, very patient. We built from the ground up. We're excited to share our ideals. We are emboldened by our principles. And that spirit of going the extra mile for people, fighting for what we believe in, frankly, that is what our Alberta NDP is best, or does best. So it's why I ran to be an MLA, and it's why I ran for the leadership, and it's why I think when Albertans were ready for change in 2015, they chose us. One of the proudest moments in my life was standing on the front steps of the legislature in Edmonton and looking out at 15,000 people who were ready for something new. It was Alberta's first ever outdoor swearing in, where we swore in Alberta's first ever gender-balanced cabinet. Thank you. Give it up for this front table, folks. They're so awesome. They're great. But seriously, you know, we wasted, from that day, we wasted no time being, well, you know, New Democrats. In the spirit of Tommy Douglas, we stopped the planned privatization of lab services, and we built the Calgary Cancer Centre, ending a decade of conservative dithering. And we worked with frontline healthcare workers, not against them. We improved working conditions, overhauling Alberta's backwards anti-union laws, and we were the first jurisdiction on the continent to establish a $15 per hour minimum wage. We brought in Alberta's first honest-to-goodness climate plan that priced pollution, kick-started our renewable energy economy, and phased out coal power, leading not only to an immediate improvement in the health of Albertans, but also one of the biggest drops in Canada's electricity carbon emissions in modern memory. And like MJ Coldwell, we fought for pensions. In fact, just this January, some significant improvements to the Canada Pension Plan came into effect. Changes that happened because way back in 2015, there was suddenly one more unexpected progressive ally amongst the First Ministers at the Council of the Federation. It was during preparation for my first ever COF meeting, and I remembered the bureaucrats handing me the draft agenda, and I said, guys, where's CPP on this agenda? I'm pretty sure we have the votes we need now. And they looked at me kind of confused before being like, oh, right, not a conservative. Okay. And we did it, and we got it through. And even today, we continue to fight to protect and to build CPP for all Canadians all across this country. It is a plan for everyone, and no one in this country is going to take it away from anyone else in this country. We worked to earn real relationships based on truth and reconciliation. We apologized for the 60s scoop. We increased funding to bring water to reserve. And we signed a historic agreement to restore the land of the Lubicon Lake Nation, because that was what was right. And like Jack, we faced a generational recession with hope and with optimism. And unlike every other recession Alberta had been through to that point, we chose not to punish regular people for the drop in the price of oil. Instead, we decided to focus on the things that we could control as the government that was there to help people not beat up on them. We worked diligently on economic growth, creating 50,000 new jobs in emerging industries. We threw out the regressive flat tax and replaced it with a progressive one. We raised disability and income support benefits, brought in a generous child and family benefit program, established a province-wide school lunch program. In short, we supported families, and as a result, my friends, we cut child poverty in Alberta in half. Now, like Heather, I have a list of about 100 other accomplishments, but I'll save that for my book, Notley, Unfiltered and Finally Unedited, coming to your local independent bookstore sometime. But in all seriousness, these decisions were hard, and some of them were not popular. Alberta was still getting used to social democracy in action, and although we worked hard, it wasn't enough. And so in 2019, Albertans asked us to serve as their official opposition. But as leader and as a caucus, we were determined not to slow down the change that we had been seeing in our province. And again, we all knew we had to work 3 times as hard. Together, our opposition pushed the UCP off their plan to sell our mountains to coal companies. And we reversed the cruelest of their cuts to income support. And quite frankly, we backseat drove the pandemic response, trying not to let those embracing conspiracies and balking at medical science win the day. And we did this with a hugely qualified roster of MLAs, a competitive fundraising machine, and ultimately an organizational drive to win that the political geek in me will always be proud of. And when I look at last year's result, like you, or like many of you, I'm disappointed, but I draw strength from the tradition of Prairie New Democrats and New Democrats all across the country, who know that sometimes change takes a little bit longer than you'd like, and those who know that victory is earned in more than one election cycle. So I would hate for anyone here tonight to hold reservations about the state of social democracy in Alberta, because, my friends, in Alberta, we have irreparably broken the system of one-party conservative rule that has existed for almost a century in that province. Last year, as Heather noted, Alberta's NDP formed the largest official opposition in Alberta's history. We have 38 MLAs. There's never been an official opposition or any caucus in Alberta that comprises a majority of women, and never, but today, there is. We represent a diverse and a multicultural province. We elected the first Black woman in Alberta's history, the first Arab woman in Alberta's history, the first Two-Spirit MLA in Alberta's history, the first Somali MLA in Alberta's history, and the first First Nations woman in Alberta's history. We earned more votes in that election than ever before. We won every seat in Edmonton, and we earned the majority of the ridings in Calgary. Yes, my friends, the majority of the ridings in Calgary. Come visit. It's a great city. We increased our vote across rural Alberta, and frankly, we very nearly overturned the Conservatives in a head-to-head fight. Vote split be damned. But this is just telling me telling you that it's never been more clear. Alberta New Democrats can win in Alberta, and we will form government again. Looking outside of Alberta, I'm also privileged that my time as leader was also spent alongside so many other New Democrats working 3 times as hard. I'm proud to be part of the modern, inclusive approach of NDP leaders like Jagmeet Singh, John Horgan, Wab Canoe, David Eby. And just like my dad and Ed, every once in a while, we weather the occasional spat, but we always come back together and we come out stronger. I've learned so much in my time as a leader in this movement, and while I often hesitate to give advice in forums like this, I want to close by close. You heard it. You heard it here, folks. But don't get too excited about that word. Politicians use it very liberally. Nonetheless, I want to close by talking about the strengths I see in our approach. For social democracy to continue to succeed in Alberta and in Canada, we need to do things to set ourselves apart, some of which, of course, we're already doing. We have to continue to be the vehicle for bold action that solves today's biggest problems: healthcare, housing, climate change, fair economic growth, affordability. At a time when 3 in 4 Canadians who don't own a home believe they will never be able to own a home, and 1 in 4 Canadians can't afford to meet their basic needs, when families lose everything to catastrophic floods or drought or wildfire, when people work 2 or 3 jobs while CEOs get a bigger and bigger bonus, it is clear that the work of social democracy and those of us who believe in it is not done. Second, don't worry, it's only a 10-point plan, we're good. We need to organize on the ground against the misinformation and the anger that has become the hallmarks of modern conservative politics. We cannot allow others to erode the pursuit of politics as a means to improving the greater good. In my experience, the conservative playbook goes something like this. 1, at election time and before, claim everything is broken and pretend to have a fix. 2, get elected, cut and privatize until things are indeed broken. 3, take no responsibility and blame everybody else for the things that are broken that you broke. And 4, at election time, claim everything is broken and pretend to have a fix. Repeat. So they do this over and over because they don't have a plan to fix anything, and honestly, that's not even what they want to do. Their success now is found in distracting, in dividing, and disenfranchising the public from the benefits of good government, of good, strong public service entirely. Back home, as some people have already mentioned, even as emergency rooms close and doctors leave the province, our Premier is more interested in attacking school kids, transgendered youth. In a bid to continue her pattern of divisive politics, she unveiled a suite of cruel and discriminatory policies. But make no mistake, progressive Albertans, social Democrats, New Democrats are organizing even now to stand up for and fight for the rights of our children and our most vulnerable citizens all across our province and ultimately all across this country. We also, my friends, need to persevere and move forward by recalling the legacies that created our movement and holding on to the values that built them. And this is important. Every New Democrat knows the sting of a tough loss, but we don't overcome those feelings by making off-the-cuff, superficial decisions. It's why, back in Alberta, when someone tells me that our path to victory involves rebranding and giving up those 3 letters, NDP, or, worse yet, they propose severing those ties that bind us across the provinces and across the country, I'll be honest, I get my back up and I say no. Because for me, I remember those phone calls between Ed and my dad in a movement as broad, as geographically representative, and sometimes as wonkish, I'm looking at you, Don, as ours. We won't always agree on the issues of the day, just like not all Canadians will agree. That's the democracy part of social democracy. But the reason we can succeed is because we are bound together by much stronger stuff. Our values and our shared belief that in coming together we are and always will be greater than the sum of our parts, and that we should never, ever, ever lose that. And my friends, finally, we need Netflix to pick up Mouseland, the animated series. I don't know who I have to lobby, but I could do a voice. Count me in. It appears as though I'll have some free time. But my friends, truly, we can achieve the future we want to see for Canada and indeed for Alberta, one where we lift each other up, not tear each other down, where economic and social justice is not only possible, it's routine, where everyday families can thrive, individuals are treated equally, and the value of one's work is never diminished but always respected. Our path is harder because we seek to build, but we also know that as a result, our victories are sweeter and kinder, and they mean more. For decades, social democracy in action is what has driven Canada forward, and my friends, it is what continues to drive Canada forward. So folks, I am truly now going to wrap it up, and you will be pleased to know that we are now officially 38% of the way through tonight's agenda. So let me just say this from the bottom of my heart. I am so proud to have played one small part in Canada's story of social democracy. I'm so thankful that I had the support of so many in this room in bringing change to Alberta, and I do know with absolute certainty that our best days are still ahead of us. Thank you all so much for coming.
All right, so that ended abruptly, and I'm going to see what the get rid of this thingy here. the few hundred people are at the Freedom Convoy. According to CTV, check out CTV Ottawa. Specifically, CTV Ottawa has some reporting, and there's a couple other papers, but and it says there's a few hundred people out there, families, some kids I've seen, some older people. So it's a variety of people. No vehicles at all in the area, so it's not going to be a continued thing. And basically, well, here, this one of the reps did
in the province and across the country, one of which is in Ottawa.
You're going to get to the questions. And, yeah, let's check this out. This is the other day. A spokesman from the Freedom Convoy, I guess. Yeah. He answered some questions for some reporters. All right.
Where's the rationale? Where's the science? Where is anything to relate that? We, obviously, in terms of initiatives, there's many of us within the freedom movement, some of them which will be here today to present them. I will forward them off to you, their initiatives. But most of the initiatives are, even from a municipal level, people getting engaged. How are we going to operate? How are we going to have responsible government? The government right now has basically lost the reasoning that they actually work for us. This building that we're in is ours. The parliament that they're in is ours. They're supposed to listen to us. They do not listen to us. They're staying focused on their own ideology and putting that through. Because of that, going into a new election, of course there's going to be a swing as it looks, but this is an excellent opportunity for us to reach out to the general public, for all our citizens, to realize and to make sure that this corruption, this unaccountability in government doesn't exist. So how do we go about that? Well, there's several options. There's several things within the movement in which we need our citizens to come work with us on. Basically, ideally, the Senate that we have, we need an independent Senate, an electable Senate. We have to have revisions of the Privy Council. We may also have to have revisions of the Crown. Do we still want to have a Crown system? Do we still want to have a parliamentary-based democracy, which we have right now, if this is what results in a government so corrupt and so dysfunctional as we have now? So like I said, I will forward those initiatives that we have in the group. There's many groups, and I'm passionately reaching out to the general community. We are not thugs. We are not terrorists. We are not racist, as we're coined in many places. We are you. We come from several walks of life. We have everything from welders to truck drivers to cooks to actually members of police enforcement to members of the judiciary to politicians as well. So we are not a radical fringe or anything like that. We are free citizens. We are free citizens that have seen the change in our government over the last year, realize where it's heading, and that our freedoms are threatened. And that's it. So I will, again, I'd mentioned there are several initiatives from some of the panelists that were going to be here today. I will make sure that I reveal them going forward. Any questions from the media as it stands now?
Could you just tell us a little bit more about what's planned this weekend, like specifically when?
Yeah. So tomorrow, Saturday, the 17th, starting at 11 a.m., there's a permit issued on Parliament Hill. So most of our activities will be on Parliament Hill. That begins at 11. There's some music. We're hoping to have speeches around probably noon. And then the planned march is at 2 p.m. So we've been working with Ottawa Police to figure out a route for that. There are some other things going on in the city. It's the final weekend of Winterlude this weekend, and there's also some other planned protests. So the parade or the march route isn't exactly finalized yet, but we're working with Ottawa Police to make sure that that's going to go off okay. And then we're back to the Hill after the march till about 5 o'clock probably.
What can you tell us? What can you tell us about speakers, Stacey?
I don't want to put out a list of speakers just yet. We're still waiting on a few confirmations, but there should be quite a few. And some of the people will be the people that are doing different initiatives. So there's people that are working in their local communities and doing different things to attack this problem that we're all facing. And many of those people will be speaking. And then there'll probably be time for an open mic too, and to meet some people afterwards if people are so inclined.
Are you expecting to have a lot of people? And if you speak French, if you can answer in French.
I do speak a little French. Yeah, English is a little easier for me. It's hard to put a number on these things. I wouldn't say it's going to be in the many thousands, but if there's a few hundred, that wouldn't surprise me.
What can you tell us what the people you're expecting from out of town, and can you address the notion of whether or not this is a vehicle-based protest?
Yeah, okay. So, there was some messaging that came out earlier today, I believe, CPC maybe. No, there's not expected to be any kind of vehicle protest of any sort. There are a group of people coming from Southern Ontario that will be traveling together, and they've collected some donations for a local church. So they'll be coming into town together, dropping off those donations to Capital City Bikers Church. They run a free store out of there that does a lot of work in the Vanier community. It's a community that really struggles and needs a lot of support. So the people that are coming in with vehicles are going to bring those donations to the church, and then everyone will just make their way downtown on their own, but not expecting any kind of vehicle or stuff like that, a vehicle-related protest of any sort.
We'll now take questions from Zoom. If you have a question, please use raise hand function. Monsieur Lily, you have the floor. One question, one follow-up.
Hi, this is Shaoli Lee from City News. This is for the first speaker, the gentleman in the headband. I apologize if I missed this, but can you get your name and how it's spelled?
Yes, it's D-E-R-E-K.
Oh, sorry, your full name.
Yeah, D-E-R-E-K-N-O-O-N-A-N.
Thank you very much for that. And as a follow-up, relating to Saturday's protest,
yes.
Have you gotten any clearance from police or any coordination with police in relation to the use of loudspeakers or horns? Because I know that was an issue 2 years ago, and it has been an issue with more recent Palestinian protests in Ottawa.
Well, I can speak to that. Speak to that. You have
so as far as with the city of Ottawa, there is a general rule that no amplification devices are allowed. We've been kind of sticking to that rule as much as possible. Our event is going to be on Parliament Hill, where we do have a permit. So we have a permit to use amplification equipment, sound equipment, that sort of thing on Parliament Hill. As far as off Parliament Hill, I think the general rule should apply. No megaphones, no amplification devices, but you'd have to check with bylaw and Ottawa Police to be certain on that.
Sorry, can I do it? What's your message to Ottawa residents who don't like the convoy?
I mean, I would recommend that they come out and try to talk to some of the people that are going to be around. We don't bite. We're happy to talk. And like Derek said, we're trying to reach out and talk to as many Canadians as possible. Mm-hmm. So if people have concerns, come talk to someone. I think that's the best way to start.
And you said you want to reach the general public. How do you plan on doing that?
Well, starting with this, I guess.
Definitely. There are several things we like to reach out to the general public is their understanding of the issues that are within the government in terms of the alleged corruption, the alleged theft. Are they happy with the way government is behaving? There's no accountability, no disclosure of actually what's occurring on several matters. And the biggest thing is 65% of this country has less than $500 left over at the end of the month. Now, the government that's in play right now has basically come out and said that they're for the middle class. So if they're for the middle class, I ask the general public, having less than $500 left over at the end of the month, is that a government for you? Is it a government for you that has more increased taxes on April 1st? Is this a government for you in which they're proceeding with censorship bills that are down lead? Is this a government for you that priorities are constantly shifting. Do I see any priorities for housing veterans? Do I see any priorities for fixing the housing on First Nations? We're still waiting after 8 years for clean water on First Nations lands. So these are types of things that we talk about. The poverty, how are our children being educated in school? These are several issues that we want to reach out to the community on. And I know there's concerns. The poverty is increasing, homelessness is increasing. You're seeing in like the small town of Brockville, on one day, 12 people died from overdoses within 2 hours from fentanyl. Is that the country? I'm asking the citizens, is this the country you want to live in? Is it? Where you can't trust the government? Where we're seeing theft, we can't get answers to past corruption? There's taxes and taxes in our future. Is this what we want to live in? Do we want to live in this division as well? Do we want to live in a country where one province is somehow wrong? The one province that has fed this whole nation for quite some time, we can't negotiate? Do we want to live in a country where arbitrarily a minister comes out and says, I'm not making roads anymore? When we need roads to First Nations in the north, at least, when we have crumbling infrastructure in our cities now, all in the name of ideology, all unproven. So these are the things I'm reaching out to the general public. I know they're feeling the same thing. And it will take collectively all of us to change it. It will take collectively all of us to make the government aware that they're accountable to us. They don't rule us. They're accountable to us. So these are the types of things that we love to speak to any citizen on.
Have you received or are you expecting to receive any support from MPs?
I can answer that. Yes, so there has been several MPs that have spoken out harshly on the use of the Emergency Act. That really, according to Justice Mosley, there really wasn't any basis for it at all. So I do appreciate those MPs speaking out on that. I'm hoping that they will be in attendance tomorrow as well.
Are you expecting them to be?
I did give some overtures. We'll see if they come.
What parties?
Primarily the Conservative Party has been the only party that has come out against the use of the Emergency Act. Me personally, I won't mention their names, but I have had some very good conversations with members of the NDP and the Liberals that do see what I just said, but they can't control the directions of their parties as well. So hopefully they'll be there too.
We'll go to Zoom again. Annie Bergeron, one question, one follow-up. Annie, are you there?
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, there we go. You talked about wanting an apology. I'm wondering who specifically is kind of the most important. Is it the Prime Minister? Is it other members of Cabinet? And following up on that last question, have you had any conversations while you were on Parliament Hill? Why did you choose Parliament Hill today for this press conference?
Okay, I'll kind of answer that backwards. Why I chose this day for the press conference in Parliament Hill is because we will be remembering what occurred on the 17th, just on Parliament Hill tomorrow. So that was appropriate. I have spoken to some MPs in regards to this. In terms of an apology, ideally, I would like an apology from the all parties that had voted in favor of the Emergency Act. That includes Mr. Singh and the NDP. That also includes Justin Trudeau. Krista Freeland definitely owes a significant apology, especially to those that have suffered freezing of their bank accounts and the repercussions after that. I actually would hope that she would apologize to each person individually for doing that. Now, there's Justice Lametti. There's also Minister Mendicino, an apology for obviously voting in favor of the Emergency Act. I'm hoping these comments were in jest or comical on their part, but of bringing in tanks to remove people with tanks, our own military, resembling what a third world nation would do. So yes, those are the apologies that I would like to hear.
And just following up, at the very beginning, you talked about how if you were wearing a Canadian flag or something about oil and gas, it would be hard to get into Parliament today. I'm wondering why you chose a press conference inside Parliament instead of something outside where the protest had been. Was there an MP who had sponsored or invited you to bring the conference here? Is that part of the reason?
No, it was an initiative upon myself. And you sort of answered the question within the question, is the reason why I'm here in Parliament is this is where the decisions of the country are made. We had a decision that was lawfully and unconstitutionally made upon us, and I'm coming here to address it. Throughout the last 2 years, I've been at many rallies, many of my colleagues have. We've tried to have conversations with the establishment or the legacy press. They have been ignored largely for just the issues that I've brought up today. So that is why I'm here.
More questions? This concludes the press conference. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, that's it. Parliament is down for the week. They're doing constituency work. So if you call your MP, you're guaranteed not to get a reply. Anyway, there is more of that live show. With Rachel Notley's final speech, but that's about it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.